Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today, I'm going to do an express interview with my friend Quentin about his life after consulting. Purpose is to help people thinking about leaving consulting consider their options for what next. My name's Rich. As a brief intro, I also used to do consulting, and I started a platform to help consultants consider their career options and discover unique opportunities. The platform's movemeon.com, so go check it out if you don't know it already. Quentin, why don't you introduce yourself before I fire away with my 8 questions?
All right. Thanks, Rich, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. In a nutshell, so as you said, my name is Quentin. I am 36 years old, and as you rightly said, I started my career in 2011 at the Boston Consulting Group in London. I stayed there for 2.5 years. Then moved on to private equity in London still, and I am currently based in Lausanne, where I've been working for a couple of corporates. Both in a strategy position, first for Hospitality Management Group, and today for Philip Morris, where I am part of the People Analytics team.
Great.
That's pretty much it. And now I'll leave you time for your questions.
Yes. So in summary, Boston Consulting Group had a spell in private equity, kind of progressed into more senior roles.
Corporate.
In
Yep,
corporate
very
strategy.
much.
Across London initially, and then now in Switzerland, right?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so the rest of this video, we're going to try and make it short and snappy, probably 5 minutes. I've got 8 questions I want to run through with you. So question number 1 is, cast your mind back to making the decision to leave BCG. Why did you leave? How did you know it was the right time to go?
Yeah, I don't regret at all. I thought BCG was an excellent experiment to start the career, to build a network, to learn really a toolbox, and I think that's very valid. But after a couple of years, I thought, okay, I want to get closer to the action, stop making just nice slides, and really get into the meat of it. So I had after 3.5 years, I think you have these first 2 to 3 years, you have this first window of opportunity, I find. To leave consulting and move into either private equity or the corporate world. And the next window, I had to wait there then to become a private project leader, which I didn't want to wait for. So I thought, okay, now is the time to jump. I had this opportunity in private equity, and I thought, well, that could be a good transition to the corporate world, which it was.
I agree with that. I think that window, 2 to 3 years, is a really good one to leave, and waiting till project leader is quite a number of years after as well.
Yeah.
So obviously you said you had a great experience at BCG, great start to your career. If you think about your role today, what consulting skill do you still use that you feel kind of sets you apart?
Today, I'm really the bridge between the business and the data scientists. And I think that's really my value add, is being able to hear business people talk about problems which are a bit unstructured, fuzzy, and break them down, rephrase them into really digestible bits that then can be answered through data. And this ability to, okay, start with an overall business context and then go down to, okay, what are the really 2, 3, 4 questions that will help us answer a question like, for instance, today I have an issue around voluntary turnover, great resignation. Okay, that's a fuzzy topic, but actually what are the 2, 3, 4 questions that we want to answer with analytics? I think having been in consulting really helps me frame those questions and then make sure that the data we gather and the analysis we make answer those questions.
So breaking the problem down into...
Breaking it down, being analytical, but without losing the context.
Yeah, it's a ninja consulting skill that a lot of consultants don't realize is ninja until they leave, for sure.
Yeah,
and if you think about leaving, what's your kind of top tip for people who have either made the decision to leave or are maybe thinking about leaving in the future?
I would say you will probably get flowed with opportunities when you start reaching the 2 to 3 year window you mentioned, Rich. And I would say keep a cold head. If you want to leave, just make sure keep your eyes open, but don't rush for the first opportunity. Read the newspaper. We'll get to maybe to what you can read at a later stage, but be sure around what you want to do. You are in the, I found that when you are in a top consulting firm, you have so many opportunities, but only one chance to jump. So just, it's always worth waiting maybe a few weeks, a few months, if you're not 100% sure, because once you've jumped, it's much more difficult to then navigate back your way back if you feel that you've been mistaken. So I would say keep your eyes open and don't rush.
Yeah, and the point of me doing these interviews is to really help people to understand their options.
Yep.
And really zoom in on what might fit them the best, rather than making a choice that's too rushed or maybe the wrong choice in the long term.
And I would say just browsing the opportunities, you have tons of opportunities on your website, movebeyond.com. You know, just having this feel, am I more an entrepreneur? I'm more a corporate guy, private equity guy. There's this kind of feel that you need to have first before considering seriously a jump.
Awesome. And if you think about consulting, it's a slightly strange experience. What was your biggest shock when you left the consulting environment? Either, I know you left for private equity or the corporate. So what's the big surprise that
the biggest surprise when I left was actually that people could survive in a corporate world without opening PowerPoint. And you know, that especially when I moved to private equity, it's much more pragmatic. It's Excel, modeling. We do PowerPoint, sure, but that's not the first tool we open in the morning and the last one we close in the evening. And even today in a large corporate, you become much more pragmatic. So that was a bit my surprise. Less packaging, more action.
Great way to summarize. And obviously you're now, 10, 15 years progressed in your career. If you think about what's helped you progress, what's your top tip for, becoming more senior?
Yeah, sure. I would say the more you progress into your career, the more your experience and your EQ will make a difference. At least that's my view. And so remaining humble, willing to learn, and don't be a jerk, not being a jerk to people, I think frankly makes a difference. When you reach a certain stage and when you want to join a company that is aligned with your values, I think it's not everyone will know that you have a nice brain coming out from McKinsey, BCG, Bain. What would really make the difference in the long run, I think, is your EQ. And we see that today with the Great Resignation. People are leaving partly because they don't fit with their manager. They want a more human workplace. And I very much believe in that.
And I think that's interesting for consultants, because certainly when I was consulting at McKinsey, it felt like our job was to give the client the answer. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's the power of listening, and almost not having the answer. When you're outside of consulting, that's how you build relationships. Sure. And getting things done is typically formed on the strength of those relationships. So yeah, EQ is a great way to summarize, and having that in the heart of how you progress is certainly something I see in senior leaders that I respect.
And unfortunately, the consulting firms are not the best schools to learn EQ.
Absolutely, it's not it's not the natural part of the DNA. Cool. So if you reflect on your job now, a more senior role within corporate strategy, being that bridge to the data analytics team, like what are the best bits about your job? So the question here is like, who's going to enjoy this? Who's it going to suit? Like, what really gets you energized in this role?
Well, yeah, I think the big plus of joining a large corporate, and especially a large cash-rich one such as Philip Morris, is that the array of opportunities, especially in a new field such as people analytics, is huge. We have, so the company is very healthy financially, so you have plenty of funding for new projects. We operate in more than 150 markets, so you have lots of different situations. Therefore, more generally, as a career, that's a very diverse career, because you have plenty of functions, plenty of center of expertise, and again, the opportunity to travel geographically. So doesn't mean you must, but that's always an option that's great to have in mind. So for me, it's very personally, it's great because I am in the HQ in Switzerland, but I interact with people in the US, people in Thailand, people in Eastern Europe, and that's that's very refreshing.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's unique to corporates in that because they are so large scale, you can actually progress your career internally through a whole variety of functions, a whole variety of geographies, without having to leave for another business. And obviously, that's not the case in smaller firms.
Very true.
I guess flipping that on its head, like what do you miss from your consulting days? What do you look back on fondly?
Yeah, and I think that's a drawback from these larger corporates is the pace of change, the pace of implementing initiatives. At BCG, I was used to talking in days, even hours, in sometimes. Here it's more, we talk more weeks, months. You know, it's a huge machine to move. So obviously, sometimes you like it's good sometimes to have the time to implement change, to manage it properly, but from time to time, you would like things I would like things to go a bit faster.
To being more realistic about how long things can take and having the patience.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to extend your Gantt charts a tiny bit.
And on the flip side, what don't you miss from consulting?
The clearly that's the flip side too, is the work-life balance and the travel. You know, I have now a family. It's great to be home almost all the time and having a decent work-life balance, not working on weekends. Yeah, so for me having a family and raising it properly was important, so being available. So clearly I've found my good balance here.
Yeah, and I think particularly I have 3 kids, and ultimately work has to fit with family, and it has to balance out.
Yeah, that's a conversation you need to have at the personal level for sure.
Great. And a closing question is around your kind of favorite resources. So as people think about progressing their career, either after consulting or out of consulting, what are the books or podcasts or social media that you kind of engage with and find helpful, either general career or corporate strategy specifically?
Sure. I have 3 things in mind. First one, I am a keen reader of newspapers. I don't read newspapers from A to Z, but pretty much daily. I tend to read 3-4 newspapers, just skim through the titles. Again, just to be aware of what's happening, not only in my industry, not only in my function, so HR, but more generally, where is the business heading? What are the issues or the key developments? And I think as a professional, it really helps to understand the world we are living in. And especially even more as a consultant, when you are working 80 hours a day with your spreadsheet and your PowerPoint, it's very important to be able to broaden your horizons. So that's one. So FT is obviously, you have plenty of good resources, but the most obvious one being the FT, the New York Times. And if you are a foreign language speaker, there are plenty of things, plenty of newspapers you can read. The second one is about an author whose name is Patrick Lencioni. The guy is known for having written what he calls leadership fables. So it starts with a short story, a novel, like Death by Meeting is the title of one of the books. The 4 obsessions of an extraordinary executive, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. So it starts with a novel, but actually through novel, it develops a framework that then explains. And I found this kind of format very, very, very powerful. And the frameworks are very interesting. So such as, how do you handle a meeting? How as an executive or a manager should you handle your responsibilities, etc., etc. He has written like 8 or 9 books, so I think that's definitely worth a read. Those are short books that you can take on in the tube, and I really and I often refer to them for advice or good thoughts. And last but not least, one of my good resolutions for 2023 was to launch a blog. So I'm in soft launch period now, but it's called www.theftexplained.com, where I try to build on what you read in newspapers to try to bring some more ideas or some more thoughts. So yeah, soft launch mode today, but if you want to have a look and share feedback, more than happy to.
Awesome. Thanks, Quentin. We'll
Thank you, Rich.
bring it to a close. And just want to say thanks for taking the time. Super
you for having
helpful guidance. And if people want more of this type of content, you can find me on LinkedIn, Richard Rosser. I'm sure Quentin will be happy for you to follow him too and go read his blog. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel for other interviews with leaders who have left consulting and other industry relevant content. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich.